let me talk about from high level overview, like as the title says, the digital world that runs on networking. So, I mean, we all know that every digital service actually relies on, complex networks. So either you are streaming Netflix, or even as of now, we are using Zoom as a platform, communication platform, or maybe you have any type of smart home devices at home. All of that is being run by a network in the backend, right? So even though it seems to us that it's, seamlessly going on, it feels like instant and effortless. Believe me, there is much more that needs to be done behind the curtains. So it requires a lot of oversight. It requires somebody who is very skilled to maintain that network, design that network. So as our world is going to become even more connected or digitalized through, let's say, cloud computing or even Internet of Things, right? 5G as a network, and then in the near future, probably 6G as well. All of that is just showing the fact that how critical is the role of the network engineer, right? So I would say that without people who are working on the network, right, I think that our, let's call it so-called digital life would come to halt, right? So not only we will not be able to work remotely, we will not be able to stream movies, as I already mentioned that, maybe shopping online or whatever we are doing when it comes to internet. So there is no doubt, to summarize everything, there is no doubt that as the technology will grow, technology will evolve, which is going to be driven by a lot of different factors, as I mentioned, cloud, Internet of Things, AI, and so on. The demand for skilled network engineers are going to be critical in the upcoming decade. Uh, you can also probably see that I have put one very interesting fact. So when I say that network engineers are critical to businesses, right? Believe me when I say that, because by the report that has been provided by Gartner, the estimation is that 1 minute of a network downtime can cost in average around $5,000 to $6,000. So if there is a more complex issue with the network and it goes for an hour or two, you can see the calculation. The calculation is not that hard to come up with. So basically, there is a massive financial implication for the companies if they don't have right people with right skills in right positions, such as network engineers. All right, I think we can move to the next slide. With all of that said, obviously, right, there is a high demand and there is a big job security for those individuals who have those specific skills. So it's not only that the field is growing in terms of the demand, but it's becoming absolutely essential, as I already mentioned the reasons why. So one other thing that when I mention cloud, very important to say, is that a lot of companies have already shifted to cloud. Some of them are transitioning as we are speaking, but a lot of them are also using multi-cloud platforms, right? On top of that, they do need to consider and build up their cybersecurity defense of the company, right? So, with all of that said, businesses cannot afford any type of downtimes of the network, and they can definitely not afford any security gaps in their network, right? So, businesses will need people who can design networks, obviously reliable networks, somebody who can monitor things in real time, they can keep things running smoothly, and obviously to make sure that the network is secure as much as possible, right? So this is not a trend. This is more of an evolution or foundational shift that's happening um, everywhere in business, right? Moving to cloud, using multi-cloud environment, incorporating different edge technologies like AI or even Internet of Things. So all of that, again, I'm repeating in a way that these are very key skills that somebody needs to have in order to be essential for those companies, right? You can also see the second bullet point that speaks about 5% job growth projected in the next decade by the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. So that's a big opportunity. Maybe it doesn't sound massive at first, right? But in the world of digital infrastructure, you can see there are thousands and thousands of job roles opening every year, right? You can also see the fact that is put above the table that even if you go on Indeed platform and you type in network engineering, you will see approximately 7,000 job openings. Yes, they can depend on the requirements, the years of experience or the skills, but you can clearly see there is a demand. There are a lot of job openings for this, and companies are struggling to fill those in. And that's what comes from our conversations with our SMEs and people who are doing the recruitment for the employers, right? So, in terms of the short term, mid term, or long term drivers, right? So, I think I have mentioned already that cloud is driving mostly the network engineering industry or job demand for that specific role. But also, as we are looking forward in the next couple of years, 3 to 5 years, and so on. So, not only that we do have 5G, where several countries still needs to transit to that point, they are already working on 5G internet speed, right? So that will accelerate that demand and that growth even further, right? That will have implication, and that will push Internet of Things to expand to some other degrees that we are not even familiar with as of yet, right? And then everybody's talking about AI, right? AI is consuming a lot of energy. It's consuming a lot of capacity and resources from the company. So even if you're using that, you need to make sure that the infrastructure is built properly, that is secured, and that you know how to manage without compromising the work for the whole company, right? So with all of that said, there is a visible demand, there is a visible evolution of this industry, there is a demand for that job role, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. If you go to the next slide, as I have talked about, high demand, I have talked about job security, and not only that this job or this industry is very interesting for somebody, there is a financially rewarding. This is in general a very financially rewarding field, I would say, and but it also does have a very clear growth path, right? Before I jump into these numbers, and you can also see the keynote below, that you need 2 to 3 years of experience in order to get to the salary of $130,000 per year. So we need to be real that people who don't have any prior IT experience, so they want to step into that for the first time, usually they will begin in some type of entry level positions, right? So often that can be from network support engineer, junior network engineer, or maybe network administrator. So different types of terminology that are being used by different companies. But anybody who is providing support to the network engineer until they receive a couple of years of experience. So before that, those roles that I just mentioned will typically start off around 75 to 80K per year, which I still believe it's a very strong, starting salary compared to maybe some other industries, right? But as you gain more experience, right, as you stick with the company for a year or two, maybe you are start building your certification portfolio as well, you can see that the potential can grow very quickly, right? So for somebody who has from 2 to 3 years of experience, the median salary is around $90,000 to $95,000 per year, right? And if you have even more years of experience on top of that, or maybe you have collected a couple of more advanced industry relevant certification, that senior role can easily exceed $130,000 per year, right? So I would say that this is very exciting about, when we talk about this type of career and career path in general, because you don't have to wait years to see the financial return of your investment when it comes to training. So even the entry level roles are being paid very well, right? As soon as you get specialized, as soon as you get your certification under your belt, right, it does significantly increase your earning power, right? So anything from Cisco CCNA, which would be top certification in the market right now when it comes to network engineering. You also do have some others related to cloud, or you have something that's more vendor neutral like CompTIA Network Plus. But all of that can help you out to speed up your career and to increase your salary. Um, yeah, I think we can go to the next slide. Industry trends. So yeah, I have speak to that, but let me expand even a little bit more what's happening right now, right? So I did mention that the companies are shifting their entire infrastructure from physical locations to cloud platforms, right? So you have Amazon's AWS is number one cloud provider in the world right now. Microsoft Azure, which is rapidly growing, and you have Google Cloud Platform, and there are a couple of more, but those are the three main players currently in the cloud industry, right? So even with the fact that those companies who are using that cloud computing or virtualization piece, um, this doesn't eliminate the networking as a concept, right? It actually becomes even more complex. So those companies will still need network professionals, network specialized professionals who understand the traditional way of the networking, right? So they also need to understand the virtual networking. They also need to understand cybersecurity, right? They need to understand how to secure that infrastructure. They need to understand how to build or how to build on top of the existing cloud architecture, right? And other security challenges that I mentioned as well, right? You have Internet of Things, you have edge computing, you have 5G expansion, all of the things that I have already mentioned. But with all of that said, right, um, there are multiple skills you need to work on in order to be well around network professional. So not only to understand the cloud, you need to be aware of, at least from the fundamental perspective, about the security, right? Because it's becoming even more critical, right? It seems like the wars are now transiting from physical perspective into cyber. So that's also quite important concept that I would like to emphasize here, right? Uh, Internet of Things, if I can come back to that just slightly, is as a concept, we know that Internet of Things talks about connecting devices, right? So cars, medical devices, you have smart factories, you have buildings that have Internet of Things devices. So all of that is just another so-called, if I can call it, node in the network, right? So it does take people with specific skills who are able to identify those things, to be able to build on top of them, or even to design them from scratch and then secure them so they are reliable for everybody, right? In terms of the fun fact, so if you check the report from World Economic Forum, so 5G was expected that's going to create unique almost 23 million jobs by 2035, right? So if we only take 5G expansion as a one component of the industry trend and the driver behind, the demand for network engineers and specifically the demand or the growth of that industry in general, you can see that there are a lot of job roles that are unique for that specific item, right? Not to mention everything else that's coming on alongside with AI, and as I already mentioned, 6G that we can probably see in the next couple of years. All right, I think we can move forward. Skills needed, right? So in order to build a very solid career in networking or network engineering, right, there are at least few core technical skills and the technologies that somebody needs to be aware of and has, good understanding of. So first, it all starts with the core network protocols. So you have TCP/IP protocols, you have DNS, right, domain name servers. So those are all the basics that speaks about how internet, how computer works, how do they communicate between each other. You need to understand how devices are connected, how data goes from one point to another, how addresses are assigned to those specific data points or even specific devices, so you are able to then troubleshoot and understand where the problem is coming in terms of the network maintenance, right? From there, you will also need to be comfortable with routing and switching. So this is where you actually learn, as I mentioned, how the data travels effectively, right, through the network. How do you set up the paths for traffic to flow, right? So it's all about proper planning and understanding in the networking how everything operates and make sure there is no let's call it a jam, right, in the network, so that everything reach its own destination securely. Network security, I spoke to that, right? It's a must, I would say, right? Uh, we have cyber threats increasing every day. Uh, Hackers are becoming more sophisticated. Even now, with the development of AI tools, AI platforms, they are finding new ways how to penetrate the infrastructure, yet alone how to perform proper social engineering, right? Through emails, SMS, all those type of things, right? So, as I said, network security is a must. I would emphasize that very much. So, everything that you can learn, you will need to learn about firewalls. You will need to learn about what VPN is, what is the benefit of that. You would need to learn about access controls. So that's the critical point of that, of that area. Because, as I mentioned, companies do not rely on network engineers purely to build systems. They need to be able to keep them safe and secure as well, right? Cloud networking, so we have, Amazon, AWS, Microsoft Azure. More companies are moving to those platforms. As I already said, some of them are using hybrid approach. They are using multiple platforms because of different benefits they get. So companies do need professionals who understand how to actually design, how to manage, how to secure those cloud-based networks, right? So if you combine the cloud networking piece with networking fundamentals, I would say that that individual will be in a proper position in the job market, right? One thing that I would really like to emphasize as well, it's not always about the technical skills, right? So you also have soft skills that you need to think about, right? So even network engineers are not people who are working in the dark rooms. They don't communicate with anybody. It's quite the opposite, right? So from time to time, things will become messy, things will change, things will become very obscure in terms of the network. So they need to be able to solve the problems, right? They need to be able how to communicate those problems and how to work with other departments, right? So they need to be able how to think about writing the proper report, pardon me, how to write a proper report, how to ask for advice, how to present what's not working, what is working, right? Critical thinking, obviously critical thinking is combined with the knowledge that you need to understand the implications between the cables, between the routers, between the platforms, so that you are able to easily identify the issue and what the problem actually is, so you can fix it as soon as possible, right? So with all of that said, soft skills are as much important as the technical skills are as well. In terms of the interesting fact, you can see below. So we have taken this from one of the scientific research saying that while technical expertise is essential, as I mentioned, 85% of those skills that our employers are seeking are also included in terms of the soft skills, right? So I mentioned communication between different departments, different team members, teamwork, so to solve problem as soon as possible by understanding and prioritizing who needs to do what, problem solving or critical thinking, being creative to understand the implications between different components of the network, and then emotional intelligence. That's also part of the soft skills that I mentioned. So those are the top four skills, if I can mention it like that, or at least technical side, and then the soft skill side that somebody needs to have to be very successful in that specific job role. I think we can go to the next slide. Oh yeah, career paths. I have touch point on that shortly in the salary range, if you remember. So one of the great things about this specific industry or this specific career in terms of network engineering is that you have a clear path and clear career ladder. Where do you want to go next, and what the next step should be, right? What I'm saying here is that people who don't have any prior IT experience, once they gather certain skills or certifications under their belt, they usually start off as a network technician, network support engineer, network administrator. As I said, the terminology or the job titles can vary depending on the company. But all those positions are meant for somebody to, get your hands dirty, get a lot of hands-on, and understanding at least the basics of troubleshooting, how to properly monitor network performance, understand what's going on well, what's not going well, and then provide day-to-day support to the senior staff team members. Right. On that, you're building your foundation. You're getting exposed to different technologies. You're getting exposed to different scenarios and situations. So you're learning through that process. And as you're becoming more comfortable, right, you're gaining the experience. Maybe you also get additional certification if it's needed. Then you can move into the mid-level roles, as we mentioned, like network engineer, right? Network administrator. Now here we can talk about senior or junior difference and so on. But at this stage, it's not just fixing the problems, right? At this specific stage, you are actually designing, building, and maintaining the entire network, right? So that's a great responsibility. You need to make sure that the system is secure, that it's scalable, and that the network, as it is performing as its best, right? So here, the individuals are working with different types of advanced equipment, cloud platforms that I mentioned from Amazon, AWS, or Azure, or cloud, or maybe some others. And in this position, you're actually starting to take the lead on those projects, right? Further down the road, we can see as an advanced career path, you can see network architect, cloud network engineers, right? So this is where actually individuals are designing a very large scale, like an enterprise level network infrastructure, right? Which are kind of tied, or they are even now cloud based systems, right? So creating something completely from scratch. So this means that you need to work on with multiple departments. You will have a team of people in your department. Maybe you will work with global vendors or on multiple locations since everything is remote right now. So this is going to be a very complex item. It's going to be deeply integrated with cybersecurity as well, cybersecurity team specifically. So as I said, like all of that has a clear path that's leading you from point A to point C, depending on where do you want to be. But it does provide you a very straightforward career ladder. I would say it like that. So as I said, like it doesn't really matter where you start. This is the exciting field. It's a clear path. It has a high impact, high paying roles, as we mentioned as well. But only depends on the individual if you're willing to learn, to stay motivated, and then it's an ongoing learning. As I said, right? Technology evolves, technology change. You need to be up to speed with those type of things, but once you're there, it's going to be much easier, right, to progress as you see it fit.